Well, I suppose at the moment we are standing in the historical centre of Ballylongford, as we might say. Behind us is the Church of St. Michael the Archangel, which was built in 1872, and to our right is the local national school, St. Oliver Plunkett's, which was built in the 1970s, and directly in front of us or behind us is the parish hall, which was opened on a very historic day because it was opened on Easter Monday 1916, and it was burned down in 1921 by the Black and Tans, as was a great part of the village, and reopened in the 1920s and refurbished a few years ago. And this area was laid out by our former parish priest, Father Phil Connell, and all around we have little plaques that record the ecclesiastical history of the area. And then to our right here we have a beautiful bronze bust of Michael O'Reilly, the O'Reilly, who was founder of the Irish Volunteers, and indeed the only one of the leaders of the Volunteers to be killed in action in 1916. Then we have a bust again of Brendan Kennelly, our famous local poet, former Professor of English in Trinity College, and now back here living happily with us again here in Kerry. And as well, we can cast back to the very coming of Christianity to the area. We have the cross of St. Lachtan, which was unveiled here in the millennium year 2000. St. Lachtan was alleged to be the first to bring Christianity to the area, and he's one of our patron saints here in spite of being a Cork man. Well, Lislachtan Abbey was founded by the O'Connors of Carrigafoyle Castle, and it was actually built before the castle. It was built from the 1470s on, whereas the castle was built in the 1490s. And it should be called a friary, not an abbey, because it was built for the Franciscans. And it's one of the finest examples of that century of building. We are standing here in the nave, and we're facing onto the east window, which was above the high altar. And the strange thing is really that the friars were only here for 100 years, because in the 1580s the Elizabethan forces, headed by Lord Grey, who was a violent anti-Catholic, they came here to attack Carrigafoyle, and on the way they came to Lislachtan. The friars knew that they were coming, and they ran away, but there were 3 of them who were too old, too feeble to run away, and they were killed by Queen Elizabeth's soldiers as they knelt in prayer before the high altar. And when the friars ran away, they took with them the most valuable thing that they had in this friary, and that was the processional cross of St. Lachtan again. And as they ran, I suppose they were afraid that they'd be overtaken, and they broke the arms off the cross, and they buried it in a field. Presumably they thought that they'd be able to recover it, but they never came back to recover it. And we were talking about Brendan Kennelly, and Brendan wrote a lovely poem about the cross, and he spoke about it being buried in the earth for hundreds of years. And so it was until a man called Jeffcott was ploughing in the middle of the 19th century, and he found it when he was ploughing, and it was eventually ended up in the Irish Academy in Dublin, and it's now in the National Museum for everyone to see. So the friars actually did come back here after the Elizabethan Wars, and they were here until the time of Cromwell. And Cromwell's General Ludlow came to this area, and he apparently knocked the roof off the friary here, and he blew up the castle in Carrigafoyle, and that was more or less the finish of the power of the O'Connors in North Kerry. And today, as you can see, the Lislachtan is the burial ground for not alone for Ballylongford parish, but for many of the surrounding parishes. And there's an annual mass here on the first Friday in August, and last year that Mass was attended by between 900 and 1,000 people. So that will give you an idea of how many people are buried here and from the different parishes, as I say.